All right, everyone, ready to get our hands dirty. Today we're tackling a career that's, well, a little wilder than most. We're diving into the world of zookeeping.
Yeah, we're going way past those childhood dreams of bottle feeding tiger cubs.
Though, admit it, those were pretty awesome dreams, right?
Definitely. But we're here to talk about what it takes to actually make zookeeping your life, not just a fantasy. And our main guide for this deep dive, RoleCatcher's Zookeeper Career Guide, which is packed with insights.
By the end of this, you won't just know if this job's got your name on it, you might even have a head start on actually landing it.
I like it. Sounds like a plan.
So, let's get right to it. Rollcatcher doesn't beat around the bush. What's a zookeeper actually do? And spoiler, it's about way more than looking cute in those khaki shorts.
It's about animal welfare, full stop. Think of it less like a petting zoo, more like running a really important, really rewarding healthcare system, but for some of the planet's most amazing creatures.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Rollcatcher talks about feeding, cleaning, monitoring the animal's health. Sounds pretty hands-on.
Well, it definitely is. But here's what's really cool. Zoos are changing. It's not just about exhibiting animals anymore. They're playing a huge part in conservation now, globally.
Right, and zookeepers are right there on the front lines of that whole thing.
Exactly.
Now that you mention it, the guide does talk about zoos being involved with breeding programs to help endangered species, which is honestly incredible when you think about it. But gotta ask, what about the less glamorous side? Because let's be real, working with animals can't be all sunshine and rainbows.
That is very true. And the guide doesn't try to sugarcoat it. You're out there in all kinds of weather dealing with, well, some interesting smells.
Hmm.
Let's just say things can get a little messy.
Okay, so definitely getting that vibe. But there's got to be a reason people are so drawn to this field, right? What's the appeal, despite the challenges?
Well, for one thing, this career path, it's booming. The guide says they're projecting something like a 22% growth in zookeeping jobs.
Wow, 22%. That's huge compared to most other fields.
Right. So there's definitely something about working with animals, being a part of their well-being, that really pulls people in.
It's that connection, isn't it? That sense of purpose you don't always get in a regular 9 to 5. Plus, how many people can say they get to work with, like penguins and elephants every day? And the guide even talks about all this cool technology zookeepers use now, things like GPS tracking and data analysis. It's not just about observation anymore.
Speaking of technology, that's actually one of the things I found most interesting in the guide. We're talking personalized care plans based on data, tracking individual animals' behavior, even designing their environments to match what that specific animal needs.
Okay, see, that's way more high-tech than I would have guessed. Sounds like you need a pretty unique set of skills to make it in this field. So anyone listening who had those childhood zookeeper dreams resurfacing, what does it really take to make it happen?
Well, the guide's really clear about this first and foremost. Education. Loving animals is great. Understanding them, that's essential. We're talking about degrees in things like animal science, zoology, even psychology, believe it or not.
Psychology, wait, you mean for the animals? Right. For the
Right.
animals, yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's about really understanding how animals behave, how they communicate, even their emotional needs. Like learning a whole new language, but instead of words, you're figuring out what a tail wag means or a certain chirp.
Or maybe a roar, depending on who you're working with.
Right. And just like learning any language, it takes time, dedication. The guide talks a lot about learning from those experienced zookeepers, folks who've already put in the years. That's where the hands-on stuff gets so important.
Yeah, makes sense. It's not just textbook stuff. You got to get your hands dirty, literally. Rollcatcher specifically mentions volunteering, like at animal shelters or wildlife rehab centers, places to put what you've learned into practice.
Absolutely. Those experiences give you more than just something to write on your resume. You learn how to actually handle animals, how to tell if they're sick or injured, even the not-so-fun parts of the job, which, let's face it, those are important to learn too.
For sure. Okay, so you've got the passion, you've got the education, you've gotten some real world experience. Now you're ready to climb that career ladder. What does that even look like in the zookeeping world?
It's not always a straight ladder, sometimes more like a jungle gym. You've got opportunities to kind of swing different directions. The guide talks about how you usually start entry level, then junior zookeeper, then senior roles, with more responsibility as you go and more chances to specialize.
Oh, and I love how they included profiles of actual zookeepers at different points in their careers. Just to give you an idea, it's pretty inspiring to see how they found their own path. Some folks specialize in just one species, others get into animal behavior, some even go into research and conservation work.
It's really interesting how those roles are changing too, right alongside how zoos themselves are changing. Like we were saying, conservation's a much bigger deal now. So you see zookeepers managing those breeding programs for endangered animals, going out and doing field research, even working on projects to reintroduce animals to the wild.
Wow. So you could start by taking care of animals in a zoo setting and end up helping them thrive out in their natural habitat. That's quite a journey. And speaking of changes, the guide mentioned technology playing a bigger and bigger part in all this. I'm picturing drones flying around, all sorts of fancy AI tools keeping an eye on the animals.
You're not wrong. Technology's already changing how things are done. Zookeepers can gather way more information than ever before and actually use it to, say, track how animals move around in real time, figure out their social structures, or use thermal imaging to check up on their health.
That's like, you're a detective, but for animals, using all the latest gadgets to solve mysteries and help them out. But even with all that tech, I'm guessing good old-fashioned communication skills are still super important in this field, right? You're not just working with the animals, you've got a whole team of people too.
Absolutely. The guide really stresses that teamwork and collaboration. You're talking to other zookeepers, vets, the folks who handle the animals' food, even the maintenance staff. Everyone's got a part to play in making sure those animals are well taken care of.
And we can't forget about the public either. A big part of what zoos do is educate people, get them excited about conservation. I know the guide talks about zookeepers being a big part of that, interacting with visitors, answering questions, sharing their passion for the animals.
It's true. You're kind of like an ambassador for the animal kingdom, right? You're there to spark people's curiosity, help them feel a sense of wonder about these creatures, and hopefully feel responsible for protecting them.
Okay, so we've covered the skills, the responsibilities, how much the job is changing. What about the person doing all this? What makes a truly great zookeeper? Someone who not only survives, but thrives in this kind of environment.
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
The guide actually mentions a few key things to keep in mind. Adaptability is a big one. Every single day is different when you work with animals, so you got to be able to think on your feet, solve problems as they pop up. And a sense of humor doesn't hurt either.
Oh, for sure, especially when you're dealing with, shall we say, the more fragrant aspects of the job. But on a more serious note, the guide also talks about resilience. Like, you need that both physically and emotionally. This is tough work. It demands a lot from your body and your mind.
That's right. And the guide doesn't shy away from those emotional challenges. Sometimes you see animals get sick or hurt. You might even have to deal with losing an animal you've cared for. That takes a special kind of person to handle those situations with empathy, with grace.
Yeah, it really does. Things like self-care is super important in this job, making sure you've got people you can lean on, especially with the emotional weight of it all.
100%. But even with all that, the guide really emphasizes how incredibly rewarding this career path can be. It's about making a real difference for these animals, playing a part in conservation efforts, and inspiring other people to appreciate the natural world.
And let's be honest, how many people get to say they work with penguins or elephants, maybe even a mischievous monkey or two? Speaking of which, let's get practical. For our listeners out there who are ready to take that first step towards becoming a zookeeper, what does RoleCatcher actually recommend?
Well, it all starts with landing that interview, right? They've got some great advice in there about putting together a really strong resume and cover letter, one that shows off not just what you've done, but also how passionate you are about this.
It really is more than just checking boxes on a to-do list, isn't it?
Right. It's about conveying that genuine love you have for animals, that drive to make their lives better.
Yeah.
That has to come through in your application, not just say it on paper.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The guide even suggests tailoring your resume and cover letter for each specific zoo or each job.
It's true, because a zoo that specializes in, like, reptiles is going to be looking for different skills and experiences than, a sanctuary that's all about primates.
Totally. You got to show them you get their mission, how you fit in.
And don't be afraid to let your own personality come through a little. Maybe share a story about some experience you've had with animals, or talk about a conservation effort that you're really drawn to.
It's like painting a picture of who you are, not just listing qualifications, right? Show them why you'd be a good fit.
At the end of the day, it's about you finding the right place too. Not all zoos are the same. The guide actually encourages people to check out different kinds of places, from those huge zoos that have tons of different animals to the smaller ones that focus on a specific type of animal.
Makes sense. You got to find where your own passion fits best.
Exactly.
All right, so for anyone listening who's feeling that little nudge, that pull towards the world of zookeeping,
Dive into RoleCatcher's full guide. Seriously, they've got it all. resources, links, even examples of interview questions so you can be ready.
That's awesome. And hey, it's like the guide said, this isn't a career for someone who's afraid of a little hard work. Right.
It's challenging, it's demanding, and let's be honest, sometimes it's even heartbreaking.
But for the people out there who are truly passionate about animals, about making sure they're cared for, about conservation,
The rewards are huge.
think about it. Spending your days with these amazing creatures, helping them live their best lives, inspiring other people to care, that's pretty special.
It really is. That's the
Right.
power of this whole field. So that's what I'm taking away from our deep dive today.
Me too. It reminds you that sometimes those paths that are the most challenging, they're the ones that give you the most in return, you know?
Couldn't agree more. So, to everyone listening, go out there, see what's out there. Don't be afraid to try something different. Who knows, maybe you'll end up living that dream you had as a kid.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the wild world of zookeeping. Hope you all learned something new, got inspired, and maybe even chuckled a little along the way.
Don't forget to check out RoleCatcher's full guide. It's seriously got everything you need if you're serious about this career.
Until next time, everybody, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that love for animals alive.